Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news. Originally, it was just another Tuesday. The kind of day that silently arrives devoid of ceremony or warning. Just the weight of habit squeezing the margins of the morning. Gino Palazzolo was making coffee in suburban Michigan, ensconced inside a little brick house softened by years of tranquil life. The house, dark and motionless, reflected the guy himself, a little worn out, extremely private, and more delicate than anybody knew. His universe has calmed down recently. The cameras were out of sight. The headlines passed. And even the digital noise, those anonymous opinions from strangers, had finally become subdued to a hum. But quiet does not equate to tranquility. Not when the heart carries all the voice begs not to speak. And Gino had carried more than most guys would have ever done. His life had been scattered among time zones and continents. Trapped between two worlds, one based on American experience, the other charged by a woman's love half-distance. His love with Jasmine was a high-wire performance from the start, with desire and volatility firmly entwined so that neither could breathe without the other. But the years had not been friendly. And even if the show had finished, the narrative had not. Gino had already been silently battling battles by the time his legs buckled and his chest started to spasm. He had not mentioned the tiredness to anybody. The dizziness. Sometimes the crushing weight stole his breath while he sat still in the automobile, clutching the steering wheel as though it were the last thing holding him to the earth. He had attributed it to tension, to get old, to be in remorse. But the truth had been hiding in his arteries, heavy and silent and lethal. Gino Palazzolo fell by himself in his kitchen at 7:42 a.m. And time split in that moment before the paramedics, before the machines, before the world knew anything. Now with the most relentless opponent of all, his own body, a man who had weathered the storm of public scrutiny, the anguish of sorrow, and the circus of reality television was now confronting his face was ghostly when rescue workers discovered him. Lips are pallid, pulse irregular. Untouched, the coffee still steamed from the pot. His phone fit his hand barely inches apart. He had tried and failed to get help. No one was watching this moment from a TV. They hurried him to the closest hospital with lights blazing and sirens screaming. Confessions were not present. Not with major cuts to commercial. Just a man, broken and unconscious, running against time while machines completed tasks his heart no longer could. The diagnosis arrived promptly. A severe myocardial infarction. A cardiac attack so severe that portions of his heart muscle were permanently destroyed. The kind that developed gradually over years, brick by brick, blow by blow, not overnight. Anxiety, they claimed. A bad diet. Not enough sleep. Prolonged emotional suffering. This had not been an explosive occurrence. It had been a slow disassembly. He was under anesthesia. Steadied. Supervised. There were nurses in and out. Doctors spoke in short, clipped tones. And Gino, so frequently misinterpreted and ridiculed, became vulnerable, more raw and more human than ever before. Fragile. Ortal. Those who knew him were not lost in the irony. He had seen television anarchy, immigrant strife, internet mocking, and affection sometimes bordering on cruelty. 100 times he had stood at the brink of emotional collapse, yet he always managed to smile with that awkward, cautious charm. But his body had lately said the one term he never would have used. Enough, said. There was nothing to perform for, first of all in his life. No link for a rescue. Not a fight to win here. Just survival. And in that quiet something amazing occurred. Not in a spectacular made-for-TV sense, but in tiny holy moments. 2 days later, when he opened his eyes, the world appeared dark and weighty. The hospital's ceiling seemed to be a second sky. Tubes slithered over his arms. From the ventilator, his throat burned. He was mute, unable to sit up, unable even to cry. But one nurse was holding his hand, and something flashed back to life in that basic motion. Not yet, it was not strength. It was consciousness. The first ember of going back. The comeback would take some time. Possibly more months, but months. Physical therapy, a total change of food, prescription drugs, and a thorough review of his life would all be part of this program. Still being here brought emotional reckoning more difficult than all of that. Harder than the suffering, the adaptations, or even the chance of recurrence. For Gino, survival was addressing what he had fled. He had to wonder why he had passed over the warning signals. Why had he invested so much of his heart into things that never returned? Why had he hung on to love that caused more pain than healing? And maybe most agonizing, why had he spent so many years attempting to prove he was sufficient when he had always been sufficient? The hospital turned into both refuge and a jail. He watched spring show up behind glass. While he was learning how to walk once more, he watched his neighbors mowing grass and strolling dogs. Meals were set out and watched over, taken daily from blood. And every time he stared in the mirror, he saw someone unfamiliar as well as familiar. Thinner, paler, older. Perhaps also wiser, though. Eventually, word of his illness got outside the door. Social media burst in a whirlwind of astonishment, sympathy, and late compassion. Praising for Gino. Didn't know he was going through so much. He is deserving of tranquility. It was odd how people could see him clearly only after being close to death. Gino did not, however, read the remarks. Unable. Because the fight within him moved beyond reputation now. It had to do with atonement. Not in front of the cameras. Not aimed at Jasmine. Not for another person. Just for him. The fact was he had no idea whether he would ever experience love once more. Not sure whether he wanted to at all. Right now, he yearned something far more drastic. Stillness is another word. Authenticity. And healing, of the soul as much as of the body. He started keeping morning notes, with unsteady handwriting on lined paper. He penned letters to his younger self, laden with grief and forgiveness. Even if nobody answered, he voiced inquiries aloud late at night. And in all of it, he started to put together the broken mosaic of a life more complex, more beautiful, and more agonizing than anyone on television had ever known. On some days he wanted to give up, days on which the suffering was intolerable, days when the silence seemed to be a verdict rather than a gift. Then, though, came little holy events that brought him back to the truth. As she changed his dressings, the Motown gently playing nurse was present. The old patient next door peeped prayers across the curtain. Every time he took 3 steps instead of 2, the physical therapist applauded. These were hardly flashpoints of glory. They were graceful moments. And gradually something inside him started to shift. Not the Gino the globe knew. Not the lovely, awkward man sporting a baseball cap with mistaken hope. Still, the true man, the one who had always been waiting behind the noise, was here. After 74 days of rehabilitation, Gino at last went back home in June. The house smelled odd. More subdued. Holier. Whispering the words he hadn't spoken in years. Thank you. He stood in his living room, hand resting on the wall for balance. Not to any one person especially. Exactly right at the moment. To the air he breathes in his lungs. In line with his heart rhythm. This was the beginning. Not of a comeback, not of a fresh season, but of a life that no longer needed an audience to be worthy. Gino's universe stayed small in the next months. By choosing. Press interviews not included. Not one spectacular social media post. No enigmatic updates. Just strolls across the grass in the park. Wholesome food. Books and notes. And calls to those who really loved you. He got in touch again with his sister. Apologized to former buddies. Gave silently to support studies on heart disease. And he started to smile once more gradually, so gently. Not the kind of smile someone attempting to claim he's fine would exhibit. But a man who knows he is at last smiles. Since Gino Palazzolo did not merely survive a heart attack. He emerged from all that preceded it. The break in the heart. The scorn. Loneliness. The unrealized aspirations. The terrible, relentless longing to be adored. And among the ashes of all that he discovered himself. Alive. Humbled. Including healing. Not flawless. Not renowned. Exactly human. And for once it was sufficient. This gossip is over. If you liked the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.